People here could not fathom the extent of the corruption. But what I see happening, which is so exciting, your story about the Obama deception is a great example, is people are beginning to realize, this thing is not an adult. We're not watching a group of adults. We're watching a group of people who've been getting away with it for so long that they are no longer connected to reality. And the rest of us are seeing if a bunch of psychopaths can finance at 0%, and you and I are subject to not only the constraints of the market, but the regulations and costs they load and pile onto us, then there's no way out. It's a little bit, Curtis Mayfield had a great song called New World Order where he said there's one way in and no way out. And that's what Geithner is giving us financially. He's giving us a financial... And they're hoping
Northcom can protect them from us. Stay there. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, they're trying to ram through government health care. The Democrats have now actually read it and discovered it's another bailout, another scam to the insurance companies owned by the banks. I want to get Catherine Austin-Fitts' take on that. Also, they're now reporting hundreds of thousands dead in Haiti from the earthquake. Hundreds of thousands dead. I mean, they're talking about all Americans being naked body scanned and recorded, all courthouses having naked body scanners. They're going in all over the country. I found out 2 years ago, year and a half ago, Denver already had it. I'm kind of all over the map here. It's just crazy. Earthquakes kill hundreds of thousands, but we've all got to go through naked body scanners because somebody might blow an airplane up. Oh, men and women are fighting in France. 150-plus people kill each other a year. Well, let's ban arguing or ban marriage outright. That's the mindset of these tyrants and how they're selling us on tyranny. They could care less about you and your safety. I've got a law enforcement article here where SWAT says options for multiple shooter tactics, says we've got to get rid of posse comitatus and put the army on the streets. Catherine, I'm all over the map here. It's just... No. Because you're dealing... You see it's like the Pillsbury Doughboy. You squeeze one place, it pops out another. And what you're seeing is the lockdown across the board. And it's coming in every direction. And, whether it's the economic insanity and sort of the two-class system or it's the, what they're doing is they're rolling out all sorts of different controls because they know when people figure out that our retirement system has been basically moved offshore and now there's nothing to keep the commitments, people are going to get upset. And by that time, they plan to have the food system and the healthcare system and all these different systems under lockdown. To me, one of the scariest ones you haven't brought up yet, Alex, is the idea of sending over 1 million Americans around to collect all sorts of data on all of us. I'm sure have you ever had Edwin Black on the show to describe how the Nazis put together their original databases? Yes, he wrote the book on IBM. Right. And yes, the census people are now telling people to tell them about their stocks and bonds and what type of toilet they have. And now TSA is just downloading a large percentage of people's computers without warrants and just saying we're keeping it. I mean, it's just wall-to-wall evil. Meanwhile, Geithner and others, who is most to blame in the criminal acts from your expert view? How do we get Geithner indicted? I mean, there's open talk of it happening. Okay, well, here, I think lots of pressure brought on. This is a time when calls to Congress can make it and calls to the White House can make it very uncomfortable for the White House to not make a change here. But at the heart of this matter, if you really want to make a significant shift, what we're going to have to do is work at the state and local level, and let me describe why. Have you seen the governor of Arizona's State of the State address yet? No, I haven't. Okay, it's fabulous. She just came out and she said, and this was on health care, she said there are 14 attorney generals around the country, state attorney generals, now working together to prepare, real 10th Amendment arguments to stop the implementation of this health care reform. And if my attorney general won't join them, I will. Wow. Right. And where this is all going to come down, it's going to come down to 10th Amendment and where we can get a governor, an attorney general, and a majority of the sheriffs in a jurisdiction. Because Alex, the sheriff is the most powerful, the sheriff... Elected representative in the county. More powerful than the military. Yes. So,
but where we can align the Attorney General, the Governor, and the majority of the sheriffs in a jurisdiction, that's what's going to happen, because the only thing that's going to stop this is when you say no. And when they say that, when they declare the 10th Amendment, that's when we're going to have an argument about the cash flows. Because you can't keep sending money to Washington if Washington keeps using it to break the law. And it's not just Washington. We have international banks running Washington. I mean, we don't have our government. Right. The Congress is not in control. And so, it's almost like we're at a party. Everybody's drunk. Everybody's stoned. Everything's out of control. Where do you build the power to say no? And ultimately what you're going to have to do is you're going to need a combination of two things. You're going to need a group of leadership, and it's going to come down to Governor, Attorney General, and sheriffs in a place. You need the sheriff to show up and break up the party. Well, they're going to have to say no, but they're going to have to do something else, because what the federal government has been doing to prevent them from saying no is trying to get them to be financially dependent. Yes. And, of course, the worse things get in the economy, we're in a downward spiral, and so we've got to reverse the economic spiral at the same time that you take a strong legal stand. And that's going to come down to the cash flows. And for years what I've said is, and you can do this if you get a 10th Amendment movement into place, what I've said is we ought to assert a common law right of offset for any money that's been wasted, spent, or is missing by criminal means. All right, Catherine, not to interrupt, but long segment coming up. We got a break. We're going to come back, and I want you to roll through this and a lot more. Stay with us. We'll also look into this new year, what you see happening with the economy versus the media spin. Stay with us, Solari.com. There must be some kind of way out of here. Said a joker to the thief. We have to identify the parasite psychopaths that have given themselves the power to create money out of nothing. But that money doesn't have any real value till they convince us to borrow it. Then they get us into debt and take over the planet. Solari.com is the amazing investment and / news site, and so much more. Solari.com, SOLARI.com. Catherine Austin Fitts is our gracious guest, a very busy lady, spending time with us today. We appreciate her coming on. Okay, you got cut off by the break. And you were getting into where all this is going, what these people are doing, the police state grid they're setting up, the magnitude of Bankstergate. And you very astutely, people said, well, wait, Obama's been in office less than a year, right at a year next week. How can she say this administration for a year and a half? But all of my expert guests said that the last 6 months or so of Bush's reign, the power was fully given over to the Federal Reserve, to the banks, and that you had total fusion and coordination between the Bush bankers and the Obama bankers. This is completely bipartisan. Yes. This is people who believe in freedom against people who don't. And it's got nothing to do with those kind of party lines. So this is totally bipartisan. And in fact, if you look at the people who've stayed between the Clinton administration and the Bush administration, or then held over between the Bush administration, at a deeper level, it's the same team. So this is not, two-party system is it's the party of just us. So now the opportunity again, Alex, is if in those states where we have alignment between the governor, the attorney general, and the sheriff, or majority of the sheriffs, and you can take a legal stand, then the question is, how do you re-engineer the cash flows so that the federal government and the Federal Reserve don't pull the rug out from under? And so there has to be an economic plan that has to deal with all the money we're sending to Washington and all the money we're getting back. And the reality is, I think there are very powerful legal arguments that say, at a state or local level, you can assert common law right of offset for all the money that's been stolen, all the money that's missing, escrow federal taxes, and say, something, don't send any money, we'll pay our own stuff here, and literally take control of the cash flows. But what it's going to mean is, in a lot of different industries, we're going to have to start behaving in very productive ways, because one of the ways that the money has worked is the banksters are allowed to get away with murder because we get a lot of subsidies, and we've allowed ourselves to get very unproductive. So we have, for example, a whole local medical community and infrastructure in every one of our places and state that is used to it's got a very high cost infrastructure. So we're all going to have to organize and change. And the biggest one is we now have, say I live in a county, the war on drugs is our biggest business. It's our biggest industry. And we don't have enough people to farm because everybody's too busy dealing or growing drugs. So, we're going to have to change the local level, and we're going to have to get very, very productive. Now, if we're willing to do that, we can absolutely turn around the economic spiral, because it's small business that creates jobs, and at some point, prisons and drug dealing is not something that makes a nation great.
The parasite
change too.
The parasite economy is killing the host.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's more than It is now eating through a great deal of muscle, and we have another year or 2 or 3 to make this change. But if we don't make it in a year or 2 or 3, then we are really, we will have gone across into the abyss.